The Grand Meridian Hotel lobby stretched like a cathedral of wealth. Marble floors caught the morning light in white gold ripples. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen waterfalls overhead. Grace Chen pushed her cleaning cart past the front desk. Her royal blue uniform was pressed sharp. Her name tag sat crooked. She'd stopped fixing it months ago. Manager Richard Castellano stood near the concierge station. His emerald green tie matched his eyes, cold, assessing. He watched Grace approach with that familiar expression, disdain wrapped in professional courtesy. "Grace," his voice carried across the lobby, "make sure the executive suite is spotless." "We have important guests today," she nodded. "Yes, Mr. Castellano." "And Grace?" He stepped closer, voice dropping. "Try to be invisible. High-profile clients don't need to see housekeeping." Lingering, the words landed like they always did, quiet, sharp, designed to remind her of her place. Grace's hands tightened on the cart handle. The metal was cool under her palms. She met his gaze for 1 second, just long enough to acknowledge, then moved toward the service elevator. Behind her, the lobby doors swept open. A rush of cold November air swept inside. Richard's expression transformed instantly. His smile bloomed wide and eager. "Gentlemen, welcome to the Grand Meridian." Grace glanced back. A group of 5 men entered, led by a figure in a charcoal suit. His posture radiated authority and impatience. Mr. Wei had arrived. Grace had worked at the Grand Meridian for 3 years and 2 months. She knew every marble vein in the lobby floor. She knew which elevator made a clicking sound at the 3rd floor. She knew the exact angle of morning light that made the chandeliers sparkle like stars. She also knew invisibility, the art of moving through spaces without disturbing the people who mattered. Guests looked past her. Management looked through her. She was a uniform, a function, a necessity that shouldn't be noticed. Her daughter Maya was 12 now. Bright eyes, quick mind, dreams as big as the sky. Maya wanted to study medicine at Johns Hopkins. She talked about it every night over dinner in their small apartment, the one with thin walls and a radiator that clanked. Grace listened, encouraged, saved every dollar she could spare. Her own dreams lived in a different timeline. Georgetown University, linguistics program, fluency in Mandarin, French, Spanish, and English. She'd been 22 when everything shifted. Her mother's cancer diagnosis arrived the same week as her graduate school acceptance letter. There was no choice to make. Grace left school. She worked. She cared. She survived. Her mother passed 3 years ago, but the bills remained. The survival remained. The Grand Meridian didn't ask about her education. They needed someone reliable, someone quiet, someone willing to work early mornings and late nights. Grace was all 3. Richard Castellano had been her manager for 18 months. He'd climbed quickly through hotel management, smooth-talking, well-connected, obsessed with appearances. He evaluated people in categories, valuable, useful, or invisible. Grace knew which category she occupied. She felt it every time he spoke to her, every time he gave instructions without meeting her eyes, every time he reminded her about standards, as if she was the one who might lower them. She finished restocking the supply closet on the 3rd floor. Her phone buzzed. A text from Maya. "Love you, Mom, acing my science test today." Grace smiled. Typed back, "You've got this. Show them what brilliant looks like." She pocketed the phone and headed back downstairs. The executive meeting was scheduled for 10 o'clock. Richard would want everything perfect, which meant Grace needed to be nowhere. The lobby hummed with controlled chaos. Mr. Wei's delegation stood near the front desk. 5 men in dark suits carrying leather portfolios. Mr. Wei himself was mid-50s, silver at his temples, eyes sharp as cut glass. He spoke rapidly in Mandarin. His tone carried authority and growing irritation. Richard stood frozen, smile locked in place. His assistant, Jennifer, fumbled with her phone, stabbing at a translation app. The mechanical voice that emerged was garbled and nonsensical. Mr. Wei's expression darkened. He repeated himself slower, each syllable edged with impatience. We're getting you a translator immediately, Richard said, gesturing uselessly. His voice had climbed half an octave. Jennifer whispered urgently, "The hotel translator is off-site. She's at a conference downtown. Call her now." I did. "She can't get here for 40 minutes. Richard's face flushed. This meeting represented a $50 million partnership with Way Industries. The contract was ready. The executives were waiting upstairs. Everything hinged on the next 2 hours. Mr. Way checked his watch and said something sharp. His assistant translated in halting English, "Mr. Way says this is unprofessional. He is considering leaving." Panic flashed across Richard's features. He glanced around the lobby desperately, as if a Mandarin interpreter might materialize from the wallpaper. His gaze landed on Grace. She was near the concierge desk, polishing a mirror that didn't need polishing, staying busy, staying invisible. Richard snapped his fingers. The sound cracked through the space. "You, Grace," she turned slowly. Her reflection in the mirror showed nothing. Not surprise, not anticipation, nothing. "Get Mr. Way some water. And coffee. Actually, make it tea. Green tea." Richard spoke fast, his attention already back on his phone, searching for translation services. Grace set down her cloth. She walked to the hospitality station with measured steps. The crystal water pitcher was cool in her hands. She poured carefully, added a slice of lemon, placed it on a silver tray. Mr. Way stood 15 feet away. He was speaking again, his words rapid and frustrated. Grace understood every syllable, every technical term, every barely concealed insult about the hotel's lack of preparation. Her hands didn't shake as she approached. She set the tray on the desk. Richard didn't look at her. Mr. Way barely glanced at the water. He was saying something about wasted time, about expectations, about respect. Grace's heartbeat filled her ears. She thought of Maya. She thought of bills and invisible chains and 3 years of silence. She thought of her mother's voice. "Don't hide your light to make others comfortable." Grace took a breath. Then she spoke in flawless Mandarin. "Mr. Way, please forgive the confusion. I can help you." The lobby went silent. Every head turned. Mr. Way's eyes snapped to her face. Richard's mouth fell open. Grace continued, her tone professional and respectful. "What do you need for this meeting? I can facilitate." The moment stretched like pulled glass. Grace felt the weight of every eye in the lobby. The front desk staff stared. 2 guests paused mid-stride. Richard's face cycled through confusion, shock, and something darker. Mr. Way studied her for 3 seconds that felt like 3 hours. Then his expression shifted. Relief, surprise, and curiosity mixed in equal measure. He responded in Mandarin, his tone warming slightly. "You speak my language." "Finally, someone competent," Grace nodded. "I do, sir." "How may I assist you?" Mr. Way gestured to his briefcase. "I need the contract revisions reviewed with your executive team. We have technical specifications that require precise language. I don't trust phone applications for this." "I understand completely," Grace said. She turned to Richard, switching to English. "Mr. Way needs to review contract revisions with the executive team. He has technical specifications that require careful translation." Richard blinked. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. You speak Chinese?" "Mandarin, yes." Grace kept her voice neutral, professional, as if this wasn't the earthquake she knew it was. Mr. Way spoke again in Mandarin. "Is this woman authorized to help us?" "She seems capable, unlike everyone else here." Grace felt the accusation beneath his words. She was dressed in housekeeping blue, not the crisp suits of the front desk staff. She carried the invisible mark of service work. She made a choice in that instant. "Mr. Way, I'm a staff member here. I'm fluent in Mandarin and familiar with business terminology. I can facilitate this meeting if you're comfortable with that." Mr. Way nodded decisively. "You'll do better than anyone else I've seen so far." Grace turned back to Richard. His face had settled into something rigid. His eyes calculated. measuring this new information against everything he'd assumed about her. "Mr. Wei agrees to proceed," Grace said quietly. "Shall I escort him to the conference room?" Richard's jaw tightened, but the clock was ticking, and $50 million hung in the balance. "Yes, take them to the executive floor. I'll inform the team." He walked past her toward the elevators. Grace caught his expression as he passed, anger barely masked by necessity. She'd just made herself indispensable. And Richard Castellano hated nothing more than being wrong. Grace's father had been a diplomat with the State Department. Postings in Beijing, Singapore, Brussels. Her childhood was a carousel of languages, cultures, embassies with marble floors, not unlike this hotel. Her mother, Chen, taught Mandarin literature at Georgetown University. She was brilliant, translator, scholar, poet. She spoke 5 languages and taught Grace that words were bridges between worlds. Grace learned Mandarin before English. She grew up switching between languages like channels on a television. By high school, she was fluent in 4. By college, she was pursuing a linguistics degree, dreaming of translation work at the UN. Then her mother's hands started shaking. The diagnosis came fast. Stage 3 pancreatic cancer. Aggressive, expensive, consuming. Grace left Georgetown in her senior year. She took any job available, waitressing, office temp work, eventually hospitality. The hours were brutal, but they paid. The insurance was minimal, but it existed. She sat with her mother through chemotherapy sessions. She held her hand through the bad nights. She translated medical documents and researched treatments, and slowly watched the strongest person she knew fade to nothing. Her mother died on a Tuesday in March. Sunny day. Cruel contrast. Grace was 25 years old and $40,000 in debt. Maya's father was long gone, a brief relationship that ended before Grace knew she was pregnant. It was just Grace and Maya against the math of survival. The Grand Meridian job came 6 months later. Steady pay, health insurance, predictable hours. Grace took it without hesitation. She showed up early, worked hard, kept her head down. She never told anyone about Georgetown. Never mentioned her languages or her education. What was the point? Hotels didn't promote housekeepers to management. They didn't ask about your dreams. Richard Castellano certainly never asked. He saw a middle-aged black woman in a cleaning uniform and filled in the rest himself. Grace had watched him do it 1,000 times, the slight pause when she spoke, the surprise when she used a word he didn't expect, the way he gave instructions as if to a child. She'd built walls around her brilliance, hidden it like something shameful. Because showing it meant risking mockery, or worse, threatening men like Richard who needed to believe they were superior. But her mother's voice lived in her memory. Don't hide your light to make others comfortable. Today, Grace had stopped hiding. The question was whether she'd survive the exposure. The executive conference room occupied the hotel's top floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city's skyline. The table was polished mahogany, surrounded by leather chairs that probably cost more than Grace's monthly rent. Mr. Wei's delegation arranged themselves on one side. The hotel's executive team, CFO, COO, and 2 vice presidents, sat opposite. Richard positioned himself at the head of the table, trying to reassert control. Grace stood to the side, neither seated nor dismissed. A strange liminal space, Mr. Wei began speaking. His Mandarin was rapid, technical, filled with industry-specific terminology. Grace listened, her mind automatically passing grammar, context, nuance. She translated seamlessly. Mr. Wei wants to begin with page 7 of the contract. He has concerns about the liability clauses in section 3.2. The CFO pulled up the document. Tell Mr. Wei we can revise those terms, Grace translated. Mr. Wei responded, gesturing to his briefcase. His assistant pulled out a separate document covered in Chinese characters. He has proposed alternative language, Grace said. He'd like these exact terms incorporated. She took the document, scanning quickly. Legal Chinese was different from conversational, more formal, archaic phrasing, specific character combinations that carried weight. She read it aloud in English, translating with precision. The executives exchanged glances. The COO nodded slowly. "That's actually better than our original phrasing." Mr. Wei smiled when Grace translated. He said something directly to her. "He says you translate with remarkable accuracy," Grace said. Then, quieter, "He asks where I studied," Richard interrupted. "That's not relevant to the contract." His voice had an edge. "Let's continue." The meeting proceeded. Grace moved between languages like breathing. She caught idioms, cultural references, the subtle shifts in tone that meant everything in negotiation. When Mr. Wei made a joke, she translated it with the humor intact. When he expressed concern, she conveyed the precise level of worry. 2 hours passed. The contract was revised, reviewed, signed. Mr. Wei stood, clearly satisfied. He spoke directly to Grace in Mandarin. He says this was the most professional experience he's had with an American company, Grace translated. He appreciates the precision of communication. Mr. Wei extended his hand to her, not Richard, her. Grace shook it, feeling the weight of the gesture. Respect, acknowledgement, recognition. Richard was on his feet immediately. "Grace, thank you. You can return to your duties now." His tone was pleasant. The words were dismissal. Grace saw the calculation in his eyes. Gratitude and threat mixed equally. Mr. Wei said something else. Grace hesitated. Richard gestured impatiently. "What did he say?" "He asked if I work for the hotel full-time," Grace said quietly. "He said he'd like to hire me as his personal translator for the remainder of his U.S. visits." The room went still. Richard's smile froze. The executive stared. Mr. Wei was looking at Grace, waiting for her response. She saw the opportunity. She also saw the trap. Saying yes meant defying Richard. Saying no meant refusing a man who'd just shown her more respect in 2 hours than her boss had in 3 years. "I'm honored, Mr. Wei," Grace said in Mandarin. "May I consider your offer and respond tomorrow?" He nodded, satisfied. "Of course. You have my assistant's contact information." The delegation left. The executives filed out, murmuring among themselves. Richard remained. Grace gathered the documents, stacking them neatly. She didn't look at him. "My office," Richard said. "Now." Richard's office was smaller than the conference room. Darker. The blinds were half closed. His desk was organized with military precision. Pens aligned, papers stacked, everything controlled. Grace stood in front of the desk. Richard sat, letting the height difference do its work. "Power Dynamics 101. "That was impressive," he said. His tone was measured, almost friendly. "I had no idea you spoke Mandarin." "You never asked." Grace kept her voice neutral. "Fair point." He leaned back in his chair. "You really saved us today. That deal was worth $50 million to the hotel." "You should be proud." Grace waited. There was a but coming. She could feel it gathering like a storm. "But," Richard continued, "we need to discuss boundaries. You're in housekeeping. Grace, your job is to clean rooms, maintain standards, support the guest experience through your assigned duties. I helped a guest. You exceeded your role." His voice hardened slightly. "You made decisions above your pay grade without authorization. You inserted yourself into an executive meeting." Grace's hands clenched at her sides. "I prevented the hotel from losing a major contract, and I appreciate that. I really do." Richard smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "But imagine if you'd made a mistake, if you'd mistranslated something crucial. The liability would have been enormous. I didn't make mistakes. This time." He picked up a pen, rolling it between his fingers. "Look, Grace, I'm not trying to be the bad guy here. I'm trying to protect you. And protect the hotel. We have protocols for a reason. Chain of command exists for a reason. The protocol failed," Grace said quietly. "No one else could help him." Richard set down the pen. "I'm going to be very clear with you. What happened today was an emergency situation. You stepped up, and that's admirable. But it can't happen again. You need to stay in your lane. The words landed like a slap. Stay in your lane. Know your place. Don't reach above yourself. Grace met his eyes. Mr. Wei offered me a job. Richard's expression flickered. I know. And you very wisely asked for time to consider. Let me make this easier for you. You can't accept. Why not? Because you're under contract with this hotel. And because accepting would be a conflict of interest. And frankly, because I need you here doing the job you were hired to do. It wasn't a request. Grace heard the threat beneath it. Refuse him and consequences would follow. I understand, she said. Richard's smile returned. Good. I knew you were reasonable. Now take the rest of the day off. You've earned it. We'll see you tomorrow bright and early. Grace nodded and left. The door clicked shut behind her. She walked down the hallway, past the executive offices toward the service elevator. Her reflection appeared in a window. Uniform still pressed, name tag still crooked, expression carefully blank. She'd just been praised and threatened in the same conversation. Acknowledged and dismissed, valued and warned to stay small. The elevator doors opened. Grace stepped inside. The question echoing in her mind, what happens to people who refuse to stay in their lane? Grace's apartment felt smaller that night. The walls pressed close. Maya chatted about her science test. She'd aced it just like she said, but Grace's mind was elsewhere. She heated leftover pasta and listened to her daughter's excitement. Maya wanted to know about her day. Grace gave the abbreviated version. Helped with an important meeting. It went well. She didn't mention Richard's office. The warnings. The thinly veiled threats. After Maya went to bed, Grace sat at the kitchen table. Mr. Wei's assistant had sent contact information by email. A simple message. Mr. Wei appreciates your professionalism and looks forward to your response. The job offer was real. The opportunity was real. But so was the risk. Her phone buzzed. Our text from an unknown number. Grace, this is Jennifer from the front desk. Just wanted to say you were amazing today. Richard called me into his office after you left. He's writing you up for insubordination. I thought you should know. I'm sorry, Grace stared at the message. Read it twice. 3 times. The words didn't change. Insubordination. A formal write-up would go in her file. 3 write-ups meant termination. Richard was building a case against her. She'd saved the hotel $50 million. And she was being punished for it. Grace's hands shook. Anger burned hot in her chest. 3 years of swallowed words, endured dismissals, accepted invisibility, all of it rising like bile. She stood, paced the tiny kitchen. The radiator clanked. The walls pressed closer. She thought of Maya's dreams, of medical school tuition, of the precarious math that kept them housed and fed. She thought of her mother's voice. Don't hide your light. But her mother had never worked for a man like Richard Castellano. Never had to choose between dignity and survival. Grace sat back down. She opened her laptop, pulled up job sites. Scrolled through listings. Nothing paid like the Grand Meridian. Nothing offered the same insurance. Her phone buzzed again. Another email, this time from Mr. Wei's assistant. Mr. Wei would like to meet with you tomorrow morning before his flight. 8 a.m. at the hotel restaurant. He has a revised offer to discuss. Grace closed her eyes. Tomorrow morning. 8 hours from now. She had until then to decide, stay invisible and safe, or step into the light and risk everything. Outside her window, the city hummed. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone laughed on the street below. Grace opened her eyes. She typed a response. I'll be there. Then she sat in the silence of her apartment, waiting for morning, knowing that whatever happened next would change everything. Grace arrived at the Grand Meridian at 7:30 the next morning. The lobby was quieter than usual. Early sunlight cut through the windows in sharp golden lines. She wore her uniform. The royal blue felt heavier today, like armor that didn't quite fit anymore. Her name tag was straight for once. The night shift staff nodded to her. Grace nodded back. No one mentioned yesterday. No one asked about the meeting or the translation or the sudden visibility. She checked the schedule board. Her name was listed for third-floor rooms, same as always. As if nothing had changed, but everything had changed. Grace felt it in the careful distance of her co-workers, in the way the front desk manager looked away when she passed. Word had spread, not about her skill, but about her stepping out of place. Jennifer caught her by the service elevator. "Grace, I'm sorry about the text. I just thought you should know." "I appreciate it," Grace said quietly. "What exactly did Richard tell you?" Jennifer glanced around nervously. "That you violated protocol, that you made unauthorized decisions. He said he's documenting everything in case there are future issues. Translation, in case he needs to fire you." Grace thanked her and took the elevator up. The third floor was empty. She pushed her cart down the hallway, the wheels squeaking softly on carpet. Room 304 needed fresh towels. She entered, worked mechanically. Her hands knew the routine: strip beds, replace linens, clean bathroom, vacuum dust. Invisible work that kept the world running. Her mother's face appeared in her memory. Hospital bed, thin hands, that fierce light in her eyes even at the end. "Don't let them make you small, Grace. You were born for more than this." But more came with risk. Maya's face replaced her mother's. Bright smile, trusting eyes, dreams that depended on stability. Grace finished the room. Checked her phone. 7:55. She had 5 minutes to decide. Meet Mr. Wei or pretend the email never arrived. She thought of Richard's cold smile. The write-up waiting in her file. 3 years of silence and service, rewarded with threats. Grace left her cart in the hallway, took the elevator down, walked toward the hotel restaurant. Her heart was a drum. Her hands were steady. She'd made her choice. The hotel restaurant overlooked a courtyard garden. Morning light filtered through glass panels. Most tables were empty at this hour. Mr. Wei sat near the window. His assistant stood nearby, phone in hand. They both looked up when Grace entered. Mr. Wei smiled and gestured to the chair across from him. "Grace, thank you for coming." She sat, keeping her posture professional. "Of course, Mr. Wei. You mentioned a revised offer." He poured tea from a ceramic pot. Jasmine, the scent delicate and familiar. "I was impressed by your work yesterday. Not just your language skills, but your composure. Your precision." "Thank you, sir. I made inquiries last night," Mr. Wei continued. "I wanted to know more about the woman who saved my business deal." He paused. "Your manager was not forthcoming, so I asked other staff members. Do you know what I learned?" Grace's throat tightened. "Sir, You have a degree from Georgetown University. You speak 4 languages fluently. You left graduate school to care for your dying mother." Mr. Wei's voice was gentle but firm. "And you work as housekeeping staff at this hotel. Why?" The question hung in the air. Grace felt the weight of it. The shame she'd buried for 3 years rose like floodwater. "I needed steady work," she said quietly. "I have a daughter. We needed insurance, stability. This job provided that. And your education? Your skills? Don't matter much when you're trying to survive." The words came out sharper than intended. Grace softened her tone. "I'm grateful for the work, Mr. Wei. I don't want you to think—" "I think," Mr. Wei interrupted, "that you are wasted here, and I think your manager knows it." He set down his teacup. "My assistant spoke with the front desk staff this morning. Discreetly. We heard about the write-up. The insubordination." Grace's stomach dropped. "Mr. Wei, I don't want to cause problems." "You didn't cause problems. You solved them." His eyes were sharp. "Let me be direct. I need a translator for my U.S. operations. Someone fluent in Mandarin and English. Someone who understands business, culture, nuance. The position is based here in the city. Salary is $90,000 annually, with full benefits and travel allowances. The number hit Grace like a physical force. 90,000. More than triple her current salary. Enough for Maya's college fund. Enough for breathing room. I'm honored," Grace said slowly. But I'm under contract with the hotel. Richard made it clear I can't. Your contract has a 30-day termination clause, Mr. Wei said. I had my legal team review it this morning. You can resign with 1 month's notice, and I'm prepared to hire you immediately. Grace stared at him. Her mind raced. 1 month. Richard would make that month hell. But after that, there's one condition, Mr. Wei added. I need you to start by accompanying me to a meeting this morning. Here at this hotel, with your general manager. I don't understand, Mr. Wei smiled, but there was steel beneath it. Your manager made a mistake yesterday. He dismissed someone valuable because he couldn't see past his assumptions. That's bad business. I want to make sure he understands that. The general manager's office was on the executive floor. Grace had cleaned it 100 times but never entered while he was present. Charles Morrison was in his 60s, silver-haired, sharp-eyed. He stood when Mr. Wei entered, hand extended, smile professional. Mr. Wei, what a pleasure. I understand the contract signing went exceptionally well. It did, Mr. Wei said. Thanks to your staff member, Grace Chen. Morrison glanced at Grace, surprise flickering across his face. Grace, yes. Richard mentioned her assistance. Did he? Mr. Wei's tone was neutral. What exactly did he mention? Morrison hesitated. That she provided translation services during an emergency situation, and that she handled herself professionally, though there were some concerns about protocol. Morrison's discomfort was visible now. Mr. Wei, if there's an issue— There is, Mr. Wei said calmly. Your manager, Richard Castellano, is punishing Ms. Chen for saving yesterday's meeting. He's writing her up for insubordination. The office went silent. Morrison's expression shifted from confusion to alarm. I'm sorry, what? Ms. Chen used her considerable skills your hotel apparently never bothered to identify, to facilitate a $50 million partnership. In response, she's being formally reprimanded. Mr. Wei's voice was ice. I find this unacceptable. Morrison looked at Grace. Is this true? Grace's pulse hammered. This was the moment. She could minimize, deflect, protect herself from Richard's retaliation, or she could speak truth. Yes, sir, she said. I received notification last night that I'm being written up for exceeding my role. Morrison's jaw tightened. He picked up his phone. Get Richard Castellano up here now. 3 minutes later, Richard entered. He saw Mr. Wei and Grace, and his expression froze. Richard, Morrison said, his voice dangerously quiet. Explain to me why you're writing up an employee who just saved us a major contract. Richard's face cycled through emotions. Sir, it's a matter of protocol. Grace exceeded her authority without— She spoke Mandarin to help a guest, Morrison interrupted. That's exceeding authority. She inserted herself into an executive meeting. She made decisions above her pay grade. If she'd made an error, the liability— She didn't make errors, Mr. Wei said. She was flawless. More professional than your entire front desk staff combined. He leaned forward. Let me ask you something, Mr. Castellano. Did you know Miss Chen spoke Mandarin? Richard hesitated. No, but did you know she has a degree from Georgetown? That she speaks 4 languages? That she left graduate school to care for her dying mother? No, that's not relevant to her position. Not relevant. Mr. Wei's voice was soft, lethal. You never asked. You never looked. You saw a woman in a uniform and decided she was invisible. Richard's face flushed. I treat all staff with respect. You dismissed her the moment she showed competence, Mr. Wei said, because it threatened your control, your ego. And now you're punishing her for making you look inadequate. That's not true. Then drop the write-up, Morrison said. His tone left no room for argument. Right now, in front of all of us, Richard's hands clenched. He looked at Grace and she saw it clearly. Rage, humiliation, hatred. Fine, the write-up is dropped. Good, Morrison said. Now apologize to Miss Chen. The room held its breath. Richard's jaw worked. His eyes blazed. I apologize. The words came out strangled. Grace nodded, not trusting her voice. Mr. Wei stood. Mr. Morrison, I wanted you to know that I've offered Miss Chen a position as my personal translator. She'll be resigning from the Grand Meridian in 30 days. Morrison looked at Grace. Is that what you want? Grace met his eyes. Then, Richards. She thought of 3 years, of invisibility, of swallowed words and hidden brilliance. Yes, sir, she said. It is. The 30 days passed like a fever dream. Grace gave her notice officially. Richard avoided her completely, reassigning her shifts, communicating only through written memos. The hotel staff reacted in waves. Some congratulated her quietly. Others kept their distance, as if her success might be contagious. Jennifer hugged her in the break room. You're my hero, she whispered. Grace trained her replacement, a young woman from Honduras who spoke 3 languages herself. Don't hide it, Grace told her. Don't let them make you small. On her final day, Grace cleaned one last room, 3rd floor corner suite. She stripped the bed with practiced efficiency, smoothed the fresh sheets, placed the towels just so. She stood in the doorway looking back at the space. 3 years of invisible work, 3 years of survival. It had kept her fed, kept Maya safe, kept the lights on. But it had also nearly buried her. Morrison called her to his office on her last afternoon. Grace, I want you to know, I didn't realize what was happening under my watch. Richard's management style. I should have been more aware. What will happen to him? Grace asked. He's being reassigned. Away from direct staff management. Morrison paused. I also want to apologize. You should never have been invisible here. Grace accepted the words. They didn't undo the past, but they acknowledged it. That was something. Mr. Wei sent a car for her on Monday morning. It pulled up to her apartment building. Sleek, black, professional. Maya watched from the window, eyes wide. Mom, she said, that's for you? Grace straightened her blazer. Deep burgundy, new, purchased with her signing bonus. That's for me. The new job was everything Mr. Wei promised. Grace translated for business meetings, cultural exchanges, contract negotiations. Her office had windows. Her name was on the door. Grace Chen, senior translator and cultural liaison. She made decisions. People listened. Her opinion mattered. The sensation was dizzying at first. Being seen, being valued, being essential, not despite who she was, but because of it. Maya watched her mother transform. Watched confidence return. Watched Grace teach her language skills at weekend workshops, mentor other translators, speak at Georgetown as a guest lecturer. Mom, Maya said one evening, you're different now. Grace smiled. I'm not different, baby. I'm just visible. 6 months later, Grace received an email from Jennifer. Richard had been let go from the Grand Meridian entirely. The hotel had implemented new staff evaluation systems, requiring managers to document skills and education for all employees. Grace replied with 2 words. About time. She didn't celebrate Richard's downfall. She didn't need to. She'd already won by refusing to stay small. Grace stood in her new office on a Friday afternoon. The city skyline stretched before her, glass and steel catching the golden hour light. Her phone buzzed. Maya texting from school. Got an A on my Mandarin quiz. You're the best teacher ever, Grace smiled. She was teaching her daughter the language her own mother had taught her. A bridge across generations, cultures, continents. She thought about the Grand Meridian, about Richard's cold eyes and Morrison's belated apology, about 3 years of pushing a cleaning cart past people who never saw her. The anger had faded, replaced by something quieter, understanding maybe, or acceptance. People saw what they expected to see. Richard expected a maid, so that's all Grace became in his eyes. He never asked about her story because he'd already written it himself, but Mr. Wei had asked, had looked, had seen not a uniform but a person. That single act of recognition had changed everything. Grace opened her laptop. A new client had requested her services, a tech company expanding into Asian markets. They needed someone who understood not just language but culture, nuance, the space between words. She typed her acceptance. Then she stood, gathering her things. She had dinner with Maya tonight. They were celebrating. Maya had been accepted into a summer program for aspiring medical students. Grace locked her office and headed for the elevator. Her reflection appeared in the polished doors. Blazer crisp, head high, expression clear and certain. She thought of her mother's words, the ones that had echoed through 3 years of silence. Don't hide your light to make others comfortable. Grace wasn't hiding anymore. The elevator doors opened. She stepped inside. The city waited below, full of voices that needed translation, cultures that needed bridges, stories that needed telling. And Grace Chen, once invisible, now undeniable, was ready to be heard. The lesson wasn't just about being seen. It was about refusing to disappear, about knowing your worth even when the world insists you have none, about understanding that the people who dismiss you are revealing their own limitations, not yours. Respect isn't earned by staying small. It's claimed by standing tall, even when, especially when no one expects you to rise.